Welcome. My name is Wendy Venverlo. I'm the Executive Director of NAPSA, and it is, as always, such a pleasure to be here with you today and such a pleasure to be able to continue this webinar series. Very excited about the topic we have today. It's one that many of you have reached out about, which is what about crime survivors? What about victims who are part of the pretrial system, and how can we better serve them? And so very excited to see this presentation today. I just have a couple of announcements and kind of housekeeping pieces here at the beginning before we get started. First off, our conference is next month, so quickly approaching. Hopefully many of you on this call, or all of you on this call, are going to be able to join us in Atlanta. We do still have registration open and active. We have lots of people registering each day. It's going to be a great opportunity for us to get together, and we're expecting a big crowd. So please come and join us in Atlanta. I will put in the chat a link to our website where we have lots and lots of information about the conference. One piece, we did expand our educational offerings, and particularly around a leadership academy that we're doing on Sunday before the conference officially kicks off. There are just it may be down to 1 or 2 seats left in that. So if you are interested in the leadership course, please register right away. We will be having a wait list. And so if for any reason you get waitlisted and someone then cancels, we can try to get you a spot. Again, that'll be, I'll throw into the chat information from our website about that. Same with hotel. Our hotel sold out. So there is information on our website about another link where you can find a nearby hotel. And so far, the feedback I'm getting from that is that's working well for folks. So again, on our website. And then one other thing, this is our last webinar prior to the conference, and we're going to take just a little bit of a break. However, Mike Jones is facilitating some feedback sessions on the administrative drivers of pretrial detention. The first of those will start tomorrow, and there'll be 3 additional following that. And so I will also put the link to sign up for that series in the chat. And you need only attend 1 to fully participate, because each of the 4 will be a repeat session, but just trying to give people an opportunity to be present in case one of the time slots didn't work. So that's all I have for announcements, and I will turn it over to my colleague, Aaron Johnson.
Thank you, Wendy. My name is Aaron Johnson. I'm the current chair for the Education Committee for NAPSA. I'm also the president of the Texas Association of Pretrial Services. I would really like everyone to, a couple of things, if you would, to give us some interactive. If you would, in the chat, if you give us an idea of where you're coming or where you're at and where you're joining us from. There is a question and answer button. So if you click that, you should be able to ask your questions in there. So save the chat basically for some links and stuff we're going to put out. But if you have a question, I'll try to keep track of the questions, and we'll get them answered as the presentation goes along. And everybody has found the chat. Very good. All right. It's my pleasure to introduce Terra Tucker. Terra is currently the Alliance for Safety and Justice Texas State Director, and Jonathon Lewis is for the Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice Managing Director. He is also here in Texas, so it's a little Texas centric, but obviously this is nationwide. They have many different areas that they're working with across the country. So I will let them give their introduction, and we will get started.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Crime Survivors at the Center of Policy and Healing. My name is Terra Tucker, and yes, I am the Texas State Director for Alliance for Safety and Justice. I've been with Alliance for Safety and Justice for 8 years, and prior to that, I worked for the Texas Senate Criminal Justice Committee for 10 years doing criminal justice policy work. So I got to learn systems and really kind of mix between constituent work and realizing how our system impacted people, and then got the opportunity to move into this job and really get to work with survivors of justice of violence and justice impact people. So it's a pleasure to be here today. And now I'm going to let Jonathon introduce himself.
Thanks, Tara. Hey, everybody. My name is Jonathon Lewis. As Aaron mentioned, I am the managing director for Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. And a little bit about how I came into this work. One, I am a criminal justice major and undergrad. Always wanted to work in criminal justice field, and what really led me to this work was just thinking about the ways in which we have different intersections around how we do criminal justice work. And so a little bit about me, I'll never forget our co-founder asked me at one point was he asked me, "Hey, are you a crime survivor?" And I said no. And I didn't know much about those who were crime victims. And so I recall he shared with me, "Hey, you should reflect on that and let me know." And after thinking about it, I thought about several different times where I had experienced harm. And so I recall one particular time where me and my best friend was walking in our neighborhood, just a random walk at night during the summertime. I was home from college, but both of us were home from college, and we remember. What I remember most is a guy walking up behind us and asked us to give us everything that we had, or we'll be shot, right? And I was recalling in my head that I'm 4 blocks from my home. This is where my parents will find me and my best friend on the street, right? And what that made me think about was, one, we didn't have much because we were just college students, so we only had just I think during that time it was a BlackBerry and probably a watch. And so I remember reporting this to the police department, just sharing what we had experienced. I actually knew the guy. I didn't know him, but I knew of him from he was younger than me, and I just remember him from elementary. And so I remember just having a yearbook and going to law enforcement saying, like, this is the guy who robbed me, and come to find out he had robbed somebody else that night. But from that moment, I recognized the things that didn't exist for all crime survivors. Not once was I ever offered any services or anything to help me with what we had lost or how to deal with, that trauma that we experienced that night. And so that's what really led me into this work and thinking about one, working with Terra and changing policy, but also how we change the narrative around who are crime victims and how can we better serve crime victims to get the healing and the services that they need in order to function it back into society. So that's a little bit how we came to this work, and happy to be on this call today and share a little bit about what we want to present on. So
So what we're going to talk about today is,
next thing.
go ahead, Jonathan.
No, it's you. Go ahead, Tara. I'm sorry.
Today what we're going to talk about, we're going to give you a quick overview of Alliance for Safety and Justice and Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice and how we work together. Then we're going to talk about our survivor survey on safety and justice, followed by the discussion of the treatment of survivors in our current system. And then a little bit about the policy impact that we've had across the state, and then go a little bit into how we can continue to increase public safety.
So now we want to show you all a video of ours to give you a quick understanding of more about our work, right? It's an older video, but we want you to just listen in if you can. If you can, we know that we all are using different devices, so make sure you're listening in because we want to have a discussion on the back end of it.
I got that phone call that every parent dreads. I got the call to come quick. The colleague had been shot 7 times over a parking space.
My daughter, her gunshot, she was only 15 when happened.
Home was a very unsafe place for me. One of my earliest memories was coming home and finding my mother on the kitchen floor after being stabbed in the leg by her abusive boyfriend.
I had a 10-year-old boy tell me the other day that he knew what gun was being shot at night when he's trying to sleep because he hears gunfire so often that he knows whether it's a Glock or another type of gun?
My only niece at the time, she had just broken up with her boyfriend. For whatever reason, he got angry one night, broke into her apartment, pulled out a gun, killed her instantly. I never will forget a pastor coming to me and he said, Rick, I wish I didn't have to bury another child.
Although we're spending a lot of resources on incarceration, we're not seeing real safety in communities that's hit hard by crime and violence. Communities of color are the most harmed by crime and incarceration, but are the least supported by today's criminal justice system.
I have a cousin, like big cousin that I love, and he was one way when he went in, and he did like 4 years, and he was a different way when he came home. He ain't never been the same. You know, like that person is gone.
Prison is a place that kills. The spirit is soulless.
The incarceration in mass has led to greater problems because when people come out, they can't find jobs, they don't have a place to stay, they haven't gotten the substance abuse treatment or the mental health treatment that they need, so they come back onto the streets in a worse condition than they went in.
Right now, in many jurisdictions throughout this country, people actually need to do something wrong in order to get mental health and substance abuse treatment. That's a system that's on the wrong track. We need to create real infrastructure in communities on the ground so people can get mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment when they need it, as opposed to encouraging and incentivizing crime.
I think mass incarceration in this country has been the easy way out. It's very easy to take a person through the court system and then put them in jail.
They've built prisons. We're no safer.
Stop investing in prisons and incarceration and start investing in new safety priorities rooted in prevention and health. So what Alliance for Safety and Justice would like to do is take waste out of the justice system and reinvest those dollars into community programs that help people heal.
I think America's new safety priority should be to make our communities safe, and that's not through incarceration.
And always say we're gonna bring more police to cover your neighborhood, but I told them the answer is not the police, we need programs.
We need to listen to crime victims. We need to listen to their stories, listen to what they think safety means. And that's how we need to guide our public policy in this country.
Our major focus should be to save lives and to prevent young folks in particular from going down a path that's going to lead to this kind of violent outcome.
But also they need to find ways to heal our communities.
It's time to organize for new safety priorities. We're building a new coalition with everyday people around a new approach. The time is now.
I think our generation is the generation to move this country forward.
Uh-oh. There we go.
Thanks, Tara. So, hopefully you all were able to see the video and hear it and enjoy it. But just reflecting on the stories in the video and your personal experience, what makes you feel safe and healed? If you all can share that in the chat, we'll take some time to read a few of those out. So if you could share those in the chat, just reflecting on the stories in the video and your personal experience, what makes you feel safe and healed? We want to see what you can put in the chat put it in the chat for us, and we want to connect. I see a hand raised, but I don't know how that works.
Ooh, being heard. I agree. Knowing that I can express my feelings and know someone is listening definitely makes me feel seen and safe.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I see you said to feel heard as well. Accountability, being with family and talking to them. Another accountability. Let's get some more. Feel free to share.
Healthy community. That's a good one. So we have one that says, what makes me feel healed is knowing that the person committing the offense will not do this action to another family.
Hmm. Hmm.
Creating a safe space and establishing healthy boundaries to build trust.
Yeah. Being able to express my feelings and emotions when you're not judged or or feel judged. Yeah.
I think it's interesting, and this always happens when we do this exercise. People don't put in, seeing law enforcement or, um, anything that's criminal justice related. Really, it's really about their communities and um, being seen and heard.
Family. Yeah.
Families.
Our family. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna
So now,
say, just to close it out, Tara, I was gonna say thank you all for contributing to this. Feel free to keep adding more into the chat while we go on. I'm gonna turn it over to Tara. Sorry, Tara.
no worries. Now I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about Alliance for Safety and Justice. So we are a multi-state nonprofit that aims to replace over-incarceration with more effective public policy solutions. So we focus on things that are rooted in crime prevention, so community health, some of the things you guys were just talking about, rehabilitation and support for crime victims. We focus in the largest states in the country, which are the leading incarcerators, and we partner with state leaders and advocates to achieve safety and justice reform through advocacy, organizing, coalition building, research, and communications. And so we have like a state director and a team in California, Texas, Florida, Arizona, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. And then we do partner work in other states um, to help with policy there too. And a large part of what we do is organize survivors of violent crime and people living with past convictions, where oftentimes there's a crossover, right? You can have someone who's dually impacted because we know that victimization oftentimes can lead to criminal justice involvement for more than one reason, which we'll get into that a little bit more later. And so our organizing arm is Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. So on the side, on our organizing side with our members, what we do, like you all know, we are a flagship project of the Alliance for Safety and Justice, which we launched back in 2013. What we did was, and started out of California. So crime victims, what we recognized was that crime victims were excluded from the criminal justice reform and the policymaking table, and faced a lack of access to services and victims' compensation. And so, what we wanted to do was build a new organizing political force to win new safety priorities, right? In addition to that, what our organizing model emphasizes is the trauma informed approaches that support survivors in their healing journey, but also with advocacy. And so, when we started out of California, we expanded nationally in 2018 across the country in those states that Tara mentioned. I think Tara said all of them except Michigan. So Michigan is another one.
Sorry about that.
There you
Uh,
go.
yeah. Oh, and then now we're going to read a story out of a book that I'm doing your slides again, Jonathan.
You're fine. I can share the story. If you want to
Okay.
stop sharing the screen, I can share, pull it up. So we're going to just share the story of that came out of the book of our founder, our president and founder, wrote, which is called "In Their Names." But we want to take a particular story from this book to talk about a few things. So hopefully you all can listen in. We're not going to ask you all to read it. We're going to read it because we know we're on a webinar. So just make sure you can just hear us. But we're gonna have just some discussion around it too. This book, as I mentioned, is called In Their Names. When we talk about the hierarchy of harm, right? Victim seen and unseen. So I'm going to just expand this a little bit so you all can see if you want to read along. All right, victim seen and unseen. In 2015, Renata Singleton, a New Orleans accountant for a local elementary school, and a single mother of three, was arrested and booked into Orleans Parish Prison. Just 2 years prior, a federal judge had mandated local officials to clean up the notorious jail deplorable conditions, including lack of sanitation, inadequate medical care, and rampant violence. Rapes, sexual assault, and beating are commonplace throughout the facility. The complaint that led to the federal court mandate reads, violence regularly occurs at the hands of the sheriff deputies as well as other prisoners. Change was slow going for years following the decree. When Renata walked inside the jail, she was terrified and in tears. Having never been in trouble with the law, she had no idea what to expect. She could not sleep or eat. And even more concerning than the toxic jail environment was how her children were going to handle her incarceration. After one phone call during her 15-year-old daughter's cry during which her 15-year-old daughter cried nonstop. Renata decided it was too much emotionally for her, for the children to hear her in jail. So she stopped calling home. After 5 days of incarceration, she finally met with the judge. She sat in court wearing an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed and chained. She felt like a failure, she recalled. The judge decided to release her, requiring her to wear an ankle monitor to appear in court the next day. When she returned home, harder than trying to explain to her children about the crime that landed her in jail was trying to explain. Sorry, let me move this to the other side. Trying to explain actually committing no crime. In fact, she was jailed for being a crime victim. 6 months before she ended up in jail, her boyfriend had scared her when he grabbed and smashed her cell phone. And so she called the police. They arrived soon after the arrested him without incident for misdemeanor battery and property damage. Renata left the relationship and later told investigators that she did not want to pursue charges. They were no longer a couple, and she wanted to move on. The New Orleans District Attorney Office decided to pursue the misdemeanor case against the ex-boyfriend anyway, and to force Renata to provide courtroom testimony. They arrested and jailed her, and set the bail bond at $100,000. Renata sat in jail, panicked and petrified for 5 days, all because the prosecutor wanted to convict someone else. When she appeared in court as promised the day after her release, the case had already been closed. The ex boyfriend, who had been immediately released on a $500 bond upon his arrest, had pled guilty and received probation. He never spent a single day in jail. From that day forward, Nada's relationship with the justice system completely changed. I probably won't call the police again, as long as it isn't life threatening, she told the New York Times in 2017. As shocking as the prosecutor's decision to have Renata arrested in jail sounds, surely this must have been just one rogue prosecutor with no more compass. Renata's experience was not isolated. In fact, over a 5-year period from 2012 to 2017, more than 150 victims and witness to crimes were incarcerated by the New Orleans District Attorney Office. Nearly all of them were low-income people of color. Many were victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. Although victims of human trafficking, gun violence, and other crimes were jailed as well. Some victims, like Renata, were jailed for a few days, while others were incarcerated for months at a time.
When this New Orleans practice came to light, it grabbed national headlines and caused an uproar, including a lawsuit on behalf of Renata and other jailed victims. Yet New Orleans is far from the only place where prosecutors have opted to incarcerate victims. Legally, if a prosecutor believes the victim is a material witness to the prosecutor's case and the victim does not want to testify or may not take it to court, the prosecutor can ask the court to issue a warrant and have the victim jailed until the trial date, no matter how damaging the impact of jail is on the victim or the victim's family. While the frequency of the practice varies widely and many justice officials use less drastic methods to secure victims' testimony, including ankle monitors, home detention, and video dispositions, the starkest consistency in terms of when victims are jailed is their demographic profile. The victims who get arrested are virtually always low-income people of color and do not have enough money to post bail or to hire their own lawyers to represent their interests or challenge their incarceration. They are arrested without a right to a court-appointed attorney and incarcerated until the trial date, all to ensure the prosecutor can get a conviction. Legal challenges to jailing victims have revealed dreadful incidents across the country. In 2016, prosecutors in Washington County, Oregon, jailed a victim of sexual misconduct by a prison guard. The victimization happened while she had been previously incarcerated in state prison. The victim's bond was set 25 times higher than the bond set for her assailant. He posted bail immediately while she sat in jail for 50 days until unable to buy her freedom. At trial, he was convicted and sentenced to 60 days in jail, only 10 days longer than she had served. Every time I read that story, I'm just like, I can't believe what we put people through, right? The victimization of our system for someone who is just trying to protect themselves and their families. I think this is where we want to drop our first poll. So we also have some poll questions to keep it interactive. And while Jonathan drops his poll, I'll talk a little bit about more of that. So while this practice was decreased, there still happens in Texas and across the country where victims are arrested either because they don't want to press charges and the prosecutor's trying to force them, or because they need to make sure someone is going to testify. So I think it's happened. Like I said, it's still happening in Texas for sure. And you can check court records and see how often it happens. But not a very holistic practice. So
Thanks.
yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
I was just going to just read the poll question for people. I know many have answered. So we want to know too, like, do you identify as a crime survivor? It's on your screen or should be on your screen for you to share your answer, your response with us. I see a few, we're almost at 80, 90 people. We'll give it a few more seconds and then we can report back the results. All right, I think we have critical mass. So far we have, do you identify as a crime survivor? Roughly around 42% shared yes, they do. And then 58% say no, they don't. So this is a good combination of both intersections of people who identify as crime survivors and those who don't.
There we go. So we could think of a lot of better ways to use our resources than jailing survivors of violent crime or survivors of crime. And one of the things that makes our organization stand out is some of the work that we do with survivors, which is one of the things we do are survey them. So we did the first national survey of crime survivors, and then we redid that survey in 2024. And what that survey of survivors told us is that 2 out of 3 victims didn't receive help following the incident, and those who did were far more likely to receive it from family and friends than the criminal justice system. So our system, which is set up to, incarcerate and punish, isn't helping the very people that it's set up to help. Um, Another finding from the survey showed that victims of violent crime actually reject longer sentences as a primary solution to crime. So they want um, resources put into housing and jobs and allowing people to rebuild their lives as opposed to locking them up for long periods of time. It also showed that by a 2-to-1 margin, victims of violence prefer investment in prevention, crisis assistance, and communities over more spending on arrests and punishment. Um, and then the third point, finally, victims of violent crime prefer laws that enable judges and officials to exercise discretion instead of mandatory minimums. So what our survivors know is that when you talk to somebody and you get at the root cause of what's leading their criminality, oftentimes there are solutions that are going to help someone break those cycles of crime that are less expensive than incarcerating someone, and 2, that are more holistic and fix the problem.
I see there's something in the chat. Do we want to? Let me see. I'm sharing, but I can't see. Keep sharing, y'all, in the chat. This is good.
So in the chat, I see, as a case manager, I may come in contact with these individuals. How can I assist someone who may have been a crime victim and been arrested and jailed? That's a great question. So if someone's in your pretrial services, talking to them, first of all, right? Getting to know the people on your caseloads, and asking questions about how they got there or, what's going on in their life will help you identify, one, if they've been a victim, and 2, help kind of with that case management, like, and connect them with services that might help address those issues, whether that's mental health or drug and alcohol treatment or help finding a job. Connecting them with those resources in a lot of situations helps alleviate that problem, and makes it so that they are less likely to become justice involved. I think pretrial services in and of itself is a deterrent, right? Or it is a better solution, allowing people not to be incarcerated, for one, and then have the opportunity to be doing things. And in some jurisdictions, completing the requirements of your pretrial can help with the disposition of your case. And I think the more we can advocate for things like that, like, hey, we've spent this time righting our wrong, getting on the right path, take that into consideration when you are setting me for trial, or possibly even dismiss my case. So we definitely are supportive of pretrial. and I think now we actually have another poll that we want to share.
Yeah. So in this poll, you'll see is have you seen these type of practices in your jurisdiction? You could say yes, both the victim and perpetrator being arrested in the intimate partner call. Yes, a victim being arrested as a perpetrator in an intimate partner call. Yes, they're moving them so fast. Yes, a victim being arrested when they call for help for unrelated charges. So, like a victim called the police and was subsequently arrested for drug possession. Yes, detaining victims of or witnesses to comply to compel them to participate in filing charges or testify. Or yes, others. Please put other situations in the chat. So you could drop some in the chat if you want to, or no, if you haven't seen it at all, you can share that as well. So we want to hear from you.
Wow, I'm
We'll
seeing.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying I would venture to say that, well, the majority of people are seeing this in their jurisdictions. Yeah, and if there's any, I am curious to see if anybody knows of any practices that are not listed here that they're seeing in their jurisdictions. Can we? I think we're good. You want to share and
Yep. I want to share the results with you all. So seeing that the results are in, and one, we have two that are tied. So yes, both the victim and perpetrator being arrested in an intimate partner call, which came in at 63%. Another that came in at 63% is yes, a victim being arrested when they call for help for unrelated charges. So for example, a victim called the police and was subsequently arrested for drug possession. Coming at right after that is yes, a victim being arrested as the perpetrator in an intimate partner call as well. Do we have this? Yeah. And then Don, who shared in the chat, is I see victims not want to report because of the knowledge of harmful practices such as this. Yep.
yeah, so that kind of practice where they don't want to report because they're afraid that they're going to get victimized or penalized. And then also, kind of back to the long sentences, we also see survivors not want to report, particularly in domestic violence situations, because of how long people are jailed and incarcerated. Like a lot of times people are very close, well, they care about the person that's harming them, one, or they're afraid they're going to get out and harm them again. And so really trying to focus more on how we break those cycles. What services can we offer people? Can they go to anger management? Can they go to BIP programs, whatever it is, to break those cycles and really listen to the survivors about what's going to make this better? Um, it's important. And then I saw another good question. Um, are there safeguards? Is there any way to build safeguards against this practice, so the practice of jailing the wrong person? I think one of those is training, right? And talking to people and law enforcement, um, so that they can better identify those situations, and figure out what's really going on. I think also kind of just re-examining our system. Again, we focus so much on the end result of incarceration and punishment, instead of why something is happening and what can be done to mitigate it. Um, I think that we've made some progress, but just in the way that policies are made, with that, the end result being incarceration instead of stopping victimization, and violence. Um, and I think that's really what we center our work around, right? Is how can we bring survivors to those policy tables to tell people what it is that they really need, what's going to make them safer, what's going to make their community safer. And I think doing that at every step of the process, involving the survivors, on policies at the local level, the state level, the national level, is key to figuring out ways to solve this. So I think in response to the poll, other ways of victimization, I see, victims being asked to testify in violation parole hearings and being questioned again and again by prisoners' rights attorneys. Um, this year at the legislature in Texas, there was a lot of work around, how often survivors had to come and testify, at parole hearings, and the types of information that could be made public in trials. So I think we're getting there, like, very slowly, but exactly, making sure that we are not putting all of this responsibility on survivors and re-victimizing them time and time again, because that victimization, leads, one, to re-traumatization, but also just unhealthy living situations, and people who have been victimized are, one, more likely to be victims again, and two, those cycles can repeat in bad ways, right? They can repeat the things that have happened to them, or just not be able to function. And so always looking for ways to protect them and make sure that their mental health is taken care of is important. I think we actually got off schedule with our poll questions.
Oh, it's after this one when
Okay.
we're launching it.
Okay.
And so we wanted to ask another poll question is around justice involvement. How have you or a close family member or a friend have had justice involvement? And the second part to that question, if so, did you feel the process or resolution of the situation was harmful to you or your family member or your friend? Keep them coming. I see you all answering and reading. It's quite interesting. Wait for a couple of more people to answer, and then I'll end the poll and show the results. So we have roughly around 78, so 65% of people have answered so far. All right, I'm gonna share the results. So from there, what we are seeing is that 74% of those who are on the call today have had some involvement or know a family or friend who have justice involvement, while 26% of you have had no involvement or know a family member or friend who has. And so when polling the second part is around, did you feel the process or resolution of the situation was harmful to you or a family member or friend? 53% of you all said yes, and 47% said no. And so I think it really gets to the point in which we saw with the story of Renata and how her experience of what she experienced in New Orleans, but also like so many other victims across the country who may experience this exact same thing. You all are speaking to it, right? Of what crime victims go through.
So now we're
You
going to
want to
talk,
stop sharing it?
oh yeah, talk a little bit more about the problems and the solutions, right? So how can we work together to shift the system from being focused on punishment to a system focused on breaking cycles of crime? And we've already been touching on this, but if anybody has um, any suggestions or comments, please feel free to throw those in the chat. But how we go about that, as I've touched on, is really through our policy work, right? So we organize our survivors, we talk to our survivors, we teach them to advocate and tell their stories around the policies that we pass, and then try to make sure that we're doing that at their local community level too, right? So that they're involved. Um, we promote healing in our communities by growing our network of trauma recovery centers, which are community-based centers that provide free mental health and case management assistance to survivors of violent crime, regardless of their victimization type, services to them and their families, because we know there's not nearly enough services for victims in our current systems. We also work to increase access to public safety funding for community-based organizations that provide services for victims as well as prevention programs, and expand access to crime victims compensation by ending discriminatory exclusion. So we know that most states have crime victims compensation programs and they provide funding to survivors, a lot of times reimbursements, but it's very hard to access those funds. And there's lots of things that keep people from accessing them. One, sometimes they don't know about it. And two, some of this, like we've been talking about, like if you don't file a police report, or if you in some way contributed to your victimization, which is really narrowly, it's easy to misuse that, then you cannot be eligible for the services that for the benefits that come with that, which include paying for mental health services and burial costs and things like that. So we really work to increase access in the community to those things. And then with respect to our criminal justice work, we promote a criminal justice system that prioritizes rehabilitation over incarceration and punishment by utilizing peer-to-peer supports, increasing access to the community-based treatment, and creating better pathways to housing and employment to decrease recidivism. So again, back to the things that pretrial can do, really identifying community-based treatment. So we know that whenever you're doing drug and alcohol or just any various types of treatment, that getting it done in the community it is more beneficial than doing it through the criminal justice system. So getting locked up, potentially losing a job if you have it, being away from your families, and just being in that environment um, results in not the results are not as good. And so really, really focus on trying to ramp up community-based options.
Thanks, Tara. So the question is in the chat. I mean, the question is up, but now we really want to take time to hear from you all. So if you can share in the chat some of the ways in which you think we can work together to shift the system from being focused on punishment to a system focused on breaking cycles of crime. There's the opportunity. We really want to spend a little time here and just see what are some of those solutions, right? We can address a lot of problems oftentimes, but we know people like you who are experts can share. Here's a solution that I think will be great in my state or what I've seen from my work. So feel free to share some of that in the chat. And me and Tara will take time reading some of these.
Yeah, and I see one. I think having victims involved in deciding how the harm done to them can be repaired, not a justice system who tells them how crime will be punished. Restorative justice programming, also ensuring that victims have a voice in training and programming. Absolutely. Um, Being survivor centric, right? It, not only does someone then feel heard and know what it is that they need, um, but it allows them the opportunity not to just tell you what they think needs to happen to that other person, right? But to really tell you what they need. Because a lot of times right now, they go to the criminal justice system, their case happens, but they're not given any services. They're not really made whole. And so they're relying only on this criminal justice system. And then after that process, they're still left to rebuild. Um,
Yeah, and I think oftentimes we think that it is a one-way approach to what justice looks and feel like for everyone. And what we know and what we've seen, especially through our work and training our members who are crime victims, justice looks very different for everybody, right? And so while some may say, I want to do a restorative justice approach, that would help me on my healing journey. Some may say, I want them to be locked up, right, for 3 months. That will help me on my journey and in my healing journey. And so I want to just be clear, like that is true. What we often see is that a lot of people want justice look different for a lot of people and in which the manner to help them on their healing journey.
um, and then I see the question in the chat. I see a couple of questions in the chat, actually. So I see someone recommending more transitional programs that connect those currently incarcerated with services on the outside. Absolutely, reentry. Um, Ensuring incarcerative programming includes financial literacy. When it Okay, so here's a question: when it doesn't compromise victim safety, focus on restorative justice. Um, and then by continuing to push out survivor stories and perspectives about punishment versus breaking cycles of crime, by addressing underlying issues, pushing out and funding community-based programs, and also using data from programs to show the person's level and community impact. Absolutely. Um, so question, have you had any experience with individuals with addiction issues not wanting to participate in recovery programs, and how do you handle this? Absolutely. Um, there are definitely at times people don't want to accept the help. Um, I think one of the ways that can be handled is, you know, you offering diversion programs, offering, record clearing or whatever incentives you can come up with to get people to do what's best. I mean, also though, when it comes down to it, you can just give somebody the tools, right? But that's a really good question. Um,
And that I was gonna say, was that the one? Which one did you just cover?
what do you do if um have we ever do we experience people not wanting to do drug and alcohol treatment, and what do you do?
Yeah,
I mean, even in our
yeah,
current
that's
system,
a tough.
can't force someone to take treatment. So a lot of times if someone doesn't want to do the treatment, then they just take the jail time. Our system is set up to actually like incentivize prison sometimes because it's a less amount of time a lot of times. And it's not as hard. Um, so I think kind of reversing that to where like if you're gonna sit it out, it's gonna be for, some time to try to get them to like take the option that's actually gonna make them better or stronger. Um,
And who's to say when they come back that they won't go back to that again, right? Because they're released back into the same environment. And so that's a challenging one, you know. Thanks, Heather.
And then
That's
someone in the chat said, I attempt to find out what the barrier is. Oh, I lost it. What the barrier is, if you can identify why they feel the need to use, getting help for that issue can lead to addiction help, i.e. understanding traumas. Absolutely. Um, being again, talking to people, listening to people, um, and identifying those underlying issues. Also, a lot of times asking someone why they don't want to go to treatment. Is it, do you have kids at home and you don't have anybody to watch them? Like oftentimes it's not just as simple, and really taking the time to get to know people and ask the questions and dig in. And sometimes that means you have to establish trust, right? Because not everybody's going to trust whoever's supervising them in pretrial, there are ways to do that. We also have continue working on ways to help practitioners understand the complexities and the demographics they serve. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
Knowing who you're serving and understanding what their life is like. Uh,
yeah. See, offering offenders victim mediation. They offer, hey, Eric is offer, we offer diversion conditions. I'm curious to know more about that. You want to take the Madeline? Madeline, yeah, I think I said it right.
do I what?
No, I was just seeing somebody's comment. Um, Ash, I'm saying some of y'all names wrong, sorry, but Miss Hall said sometimes programs costs are a deterrent also. They should be free or very, very low cost. We should talk about the TRC, Terry.
Yes. So again, we advocate in all of our states to get funding for trauma recovery centers, which I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. But again, they offer free uh, clinical and case management work for victims of violent crime. And one of the things that's really special about them is that they offer um, services to victims of all types of victimization, right? So a lot of our services across the state, across the country, are siloed. So they'll be specific to human trafficking or sexual assault, but they don't serve people who are victims of community violence, violence, stabbings, that type of thing. So there's not dedicated services for them, but the Trauma Recovery Center sees all of that. And oftentimes, um, they see the perpetrator, right, and try to get at their underlying issues as well. And so, again, really about getting in, and they're located in communities that are most impacted, that have the least amount of access to services and haven't traditionally sought mental health services. We opened the first one in Texas a couple of years ago here in Austin, and they were contracted to serve 120 people, and in the first year served 800 people. So like the need is there. Um, but yeah, that is one way to make sure that people are getting services, because it's at no cost to them. And then they can help them if they want to file police reports, they can help them, because you don't have to have that in order to get services through the Trauma Recovery Center. And then in addition, they can help them apply for crime victims compensation. So it's a great model, um, and like I said, one that we advocate to get in all communities. There's 54 now across the country. Um, I want to talk a little bit more about our other policy stuff. So like I said, we advocate for trauma recovery centers. We work to reduce barriers to crime victims compensation. And we do this in all of our states. And we also work to reduce over incarceration. So we've done probation and parole reforms um, that focus on reducing conditions so that they are catered specifically to the needs of the individual, instead of just a list of 50,000, restrictions, as well as really emphasizing treatment, and giving time credits for treatment. That's one of those incentives that we try to get people to do it. You can get time off and have an early release from your supervision. We also work really hard to increase access to record sealing or deletion, depending on where state you're in. Your rules are a little bit different, but we know people living with past conditions have a lot of barriers because of those old records, right? So they have difficulties accessing housing, getting jobs, all things that are going to keep them in that cycle, right? And oftentimes desperation leads to more crime. So after a certain amount of time, once you have been out of trouble, we advocate to have those records sealed or deleted. And again, we do this in all of our states. So we've passed major reforms in Illinois, Michigan, Texas, Florida. A little bit hard in Florida and Texas, but we're still chugging along. And I think our overall impact, so since we started, we've passed over 100 pieces of legislation. We have um, increased eligibility to crime victims compensation to about 500,000 people. So removing those barriers, making more people eligible. And we have got $3 billion in public funds moved from prisons to community programs, violence prevention, mental health. So that's our main goal, like reduce the over incarceration. And then from the prison closures or money saved, make sure that you're reallocating that funds not to the criminal justice system, but to community-based organizations and trauma recovery services, because then again, we're making our communities healthier and therefore reducing the violence and the crime. And these are the things that our survivors want. And then I think with that, we are open to any more questions if you guys have them.
I'm just keeping track of some of the questions as they've come in through the comments. I think we've kept up with all of them at the moment. I did put a link out for the national survey results. And I should say that that is the second survey, I believe. There was 2023 was the first one, 2024. Recent, I say recent, recently. I assume if you guys can give us a little insight, is there another one in the works?
Oh, that is a question I did not anticipate. There's always one in the works. Um, we do different things. So based on like the need, sometimes we'll do state level surveys, and national ones. So if we did one in 2014, I don't know when the next one will be, but you know what? I will try to find that out and get
Yeah,
back with you
but that was
for
the
sure.
20, that was 2024 that one came out. So give us another probably 3, 4 years, we'll see. But like Tara said, there may be state specific ones that we may introduce.
All right, I am going to send a link out that is for feedback for everybody who is currently attending. If you would please click on the link and give us some feedback about today's session. We're, as part of the education committee, we are always looking for ideas, and we really thank Tara and Jonathan for coming on. I guess I don't have to be anonymous anymore. Here we go. I really thank you guys for coming on. We really appreciate your time. It's really important, and this is a really important look at a group of people in the pretrial system that I think get overlooked very easily. And we don't take, what they actually would like to see happen into consideration in our current system. So thank you very much for shedding light on what victims actually are saying they would like to see happen, instead of just allowing the system to kind of do its thing on its own. So with that, you guys have anything for the end?
I think just wanted to share that if you guys have any questions or feedback or just want to reach out and learn more, this is our contact information. I I thank you all for coming and showing up and for giving us the opportunity to share what it is that we do. It is near and dear to my heart, and I think when you really talk to people, they understand what it is that we're doing and why we do it. So, thank you.
I'm just going to pop up the QR code for those who may want to use this as well. This also for the recording for people who may jump on, they may see this. I'm just going to put it up just briefly, and then I'll stop sharing just so we come back to the presentation. So with that, we want to thank everyone. Thank you for your time. We hope you got something out of this. Please let us know if we can provide any future training topics or opportunities, and hopefully we'll see you all at the conference here coming up next month.